Hello, and thank you for checking out my channel. Today I'll be doing a basic tutorial in which I'll show you how to set a stone with a channel set weave. I'll also be doing a figure 8 X weave, a little bit of hammering, and I'll discuss any tips, tricks, shaping techniques along the way. And after everything's done, hopefully you'll have yourself a nice little pendant. This should take approximately 1 to 2 hours. So this is my very first tutorial video, and I hope that I'm able to show you and teach you a few things to really help you expand further into your wire wrapping journey. A little about me: my name is Ben Higginbotham, and I've been wrapping for a little under 4 years. If you'd like to see any of my work or support what I do, please check out my shop, Higher Level Finds, which is what this sticker was advertising. Okay. So a channel set weave is one of those components that is really important in advancing your wire wrap skills, and it'll really help you break your threshold from beginner and into intermediate level. After you master how to channel stones, you'll be able to incorporate it into many different types of pendants. It's good for bells, attaching as a component to a frame, rings, or weaving into a pendant, which is technically what I'll be showing you today. And overall, I think it just adds a nice look to your jewelry. So the first things we need are 4 pieces of 18 or 20 gauge hard square wire. You can use round wire. I just find that square tends to hold and secure the stones a little better. You'll need roughly 2 pieces of 6 inches and roughly 2 pieces of 4-inch square. I'm using a sterling silver for the base. Next, you'll need a stone. Here I'm using an opal. You want a flat back cabochon, preferably anything greater than 5 millimeters. 5x7 oval stone is a good start for ovals. Next, you'll also need to have some half round wire. I'm using sterling silver from Rio Grande. I've also ordered from Fire Mountain Gem. Both, in my opinion, are good resources for wire. I'll be using this 24 gauge half round wire to weave the channel. You can use regular round wire if you want to. I would suggest using 26, 28, or 30 gauge wire if you use round. Next, I have a 20 gauge half round wire which I'll be using to hold in the stone. I'm using a gold fill, which you can use silver, it's okay. I just think it's important to have a half round for this part. It tends to hold in the stone better, but if nothing else, you can use round or square. I would definitely just make sure that if you use round or square, that it's 22 or 24 gauge. You want it smaller than your base wire. And these are your base wires. Next, I have 30 gauge round gold fill wire to weave in a couple little spots. You can use silver or whatever wire you have available. Next, you need your round pointed needle nose pliers, your regular round pliers, you'll need a good set of flats. That's probably one of my most important ones right there. It's great for tightening up anything and setting stuff straight and flat. And of course your clippers. Now I'll also be using this hammering block here, which is good to have to get nice flat pieces when hammering metal on metal on metal. So the first thing we need to start is the first thing we need to do the first thing we need to start doing is start straightening out any curvature you may see in the wire. As you can see, like when it comes off the spool, a lot of the times it'll just be curved, and we want a lot of our wire to be straight. So we're just going to take it and slowly start straightening it out, giving it a little tension in the opposite direction. So now that we've got our wire straightened, to the best of our ability, of course, one thing you always want to make sure is that when you're wrapping, you always want to make sure that your wires are straightened out, and that you kind of create this area that when you're wrapping, you want the direction of the wire to go. So like before you start weaving, so like you're kind of shaping it and then holding it together, and then start weaving in that direction, sort of like manipulating it. If you do that, I think you'll have a lot better weaves and everything will look tight. It's kind of hard to do. It can be a little difficult sometimes. Sometimes you may need to use like your flat pliers to hold the piece together, and other times you may just need to tie it off with that wire at the end and then start at the other end, just to kind of hold everything in place. It's all about taking your time and placing or manipulating your wire in the direction you want it to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with this 24 gauge half round, but like I said, you can use your round wire, and if you use round wire, preferably use 26, 28, or 30 gauge. You'll need to approximately cut 2 to 2.5 feet of wire. So after you cut your first weaving wire, which is what we have right here, this is half round, meaning half is flat and half of it is round. Let's see if you can get a better shot at what I mean there. That side's flat and that side's round. So you'll want to weave that flat side around the base square wires with the round side facing out towards you. So using these 4 square wires, make sure that you want to make sure that your longer 6-inch wires are on the outside before starting, and that the smaller 4-inch wires are on the inside. So I'm just wrapping around, flat side down, just trying to get that initial wrap around. Alright. So now that I've got that initial wrap around, I'm going to then use my flats to smash it flat and squeeze it tight. Just kind of slide it, push it together. Straighten it all up. Because if you don't do that, if you start with a faulty weave right off the bat, then you're going to you're setting yourself up for failure. Your pendant's not going to be the best pendant that you could possibly make. It's just all about time and patience. So now we've got that initial weave. I'll go around it a couple more times. And I want to slide this down a little bit. I want to leave a little bit of extra room at the end. For this will actually be where we'll make our bell. And you could always take this in another direction. You mean, say if your wire was a lot longer than 6 inches. I mean, the possibilities of what you could do with that are endless. Also, you want to make sure your outer wires are centered up like this, a little left on each end. Just like that. Okay. So now I've got about 6 or so weaves around the base. Do a couple more times. I want to get 6. Flatten it tight. And what I'm doing is I'm just creating that initial channel set base that will hold the stone. Or that the stone will sit on, I should rather say. Next we'll get this half round wire, and the half round wire will be what will help hold the stone in. So here mine is gold, but once again, if you're using silver, that's fine. You just need a little. I'm taking by measure off how much I have based off my channel weave, but I'd say 2.5 inches and you'll be good. You need 4 pieces of this. Now you can do it with 2, but it won't be as secure. Sometimes I do it with 2. You can also use round or square wire here, but I highly suggest using half round wire if you have it. If you use the round or square, I would use 22 or 24 gauge wire. And now once you get all of your 4 pieces cut, you want to start straightening them out. Clip them to the relatively all the same size. And that's one thing I've found with wire wrapping, is straightening out your wire at basically all times is very important. Even if it's a nuisance, I mean, you gotta love the straightening out wire. A lot of the times while you're wrapping, you'll just need to stop what you're doing, straighten your piece up, and then continue on. You know, take some breaks too if you're just getting frustrated. Don't, make it to where you're mad at the piece. So now that we've got our 4 pieces, we're going to take these and we're going to first get them all facing the same direction. I'll zoom in here a little bit, give you a better view. So we want to make sure the flat end is facing downwards against the base wire, and the round side is of course facing out towards you. Sometimes people will use pliers to hold this down straight. Sometimes people will tie this down at the very end to hold the wires in. I've gotten to where I don't really need to do that anymore. You may need to do that if you're still really new to this. Now I'm just wrapping around my weave wire. I'm going to do this. I prefer to wrap things in 3 or more. Sometimes I'll do a 2 weave, but I find that if you break a wire, it's a lot easier to pick right back up and secure it better with a new wire off a 3 weave than it is a 2 weave. You just have more room to work with. So 3 or more is what I usually stick with. Next you'll want to take these wires and kind of just flare them up and get them out of the way. And continue on wrapping around your 4 base wires. Make sure your wire doesn't get twisted or kinked up. If it twists, make sure you work out that twist while you're wrapping it, which it can sometimes be a little difficult, but if you just pay attention, you can usually 95% of the time work your way out of a kinked up wire. So we're going to go around this a few more times. I'm going to flatten it. And now we've got the start to your first component. So continue on. Let's see, the weave count looks to be about 6. I think that's what we used before, so we'll continue to use 6 wraparounds, and then we'll wrap around the whole thing again 3 times, and then we'll lift it back up and start wrapping it for the stone to sit on. So I think one more around this is 6. I'm going to lay this back down. And I'm going to, okay, I've got a kink in my wire right here, so I'll fix that now before it becomes a problem later. So a fun thing that you can do with these channel wires here is you could weave in and out of these. You can cross hatch them. You can make little designs and patterns with them. You can weave it around the base for a cool flow look. You can even write letters. It all just depends on how you want to weave. I'm just going to keep it super basic and super simple for the sake of the tutorial, but just things to consider as you continue down your journey into wire wrapping. So I'm going to go around this 3 times. So this will make it a lot more secure now that I've got it wrapped around all the wires 6 times, 2 or 3 times in 2 different spots. I feel a lot more comfortable that the wires won't fall out now. And we want to make sure that these don't get twisted up right here. You want to try to keep them separated. Okay, so I'm just wrapping that around all of the wires. Like I said, I'm just now getting that 3. So now we'll continue on a little bit more here. Yeah, that was itchy. It was a little tight. So next we'll flare these right back up and continue on. And I've discovered another kink at the back of my wire, so I'll fix this real quick. Always want to make your stuff straight. Okay, continuing on wrapping around these 4 base square wires, just like so. This is like, relatively easy weave. We're just wrapping around everything. We're not trying to go in between anything. And so as we continue on here, what we're doing now is we are just making a spot for where the stone will sit. Want to flatten this out, keep it straight, always check. I still have a little ways to go, so I'll keep on weaving around the 4 square base wires. We'll keep weaving. It's not even really weaving, it's more just wrapping. Like I said, this is very basic. It's just wrapping it around some wires and making sure everything's straight. Give it another little squeeze. Kind of getting a little twisted on me, so I kind of had to follow it through and work out the twist. And you know, like I said in the very beginning of this video, what's really good about learning this weave is that this weave can be used in just so many different things. It's after you master this channel set, you'll be able to use it to do just multiple things. You can do multiple stone settings, you can attach it to framework, you can weave out and around stones, you can make frames out of them, you can make rings. It's definitely a necessity. It's definitely one of those basic techniques that you need to learn if you really want to expand your skill and try to get into more of that advanced wire work. Now, of course, there are multiple different types of channel settings. This is just one, and I find actually probably one of the easier ones. But this will give you a nice look and probably a lot of compliments, and hopefully you'll begin to open your mind. You begin to open your mind a little bit and see just the various ways that you can apply and take and bend the wires just off this weave alone. So let's see where we're at. It looks like I'm still not quite there yet. As you can see there, I still need to go a little bit more. Close. So I'll continue on. A couple more turns. Sometimes I'll weave around the base, sometimes I'll just give the base a turn and twist it around the weave wire. It just depends on really how the wire is sitting and if there are any wires in my way. Make sure I flatten it down, squeeze it together, get it tight. Check to see the measurement. We're almost there, still not quite yet. Maybe like 1 or 2 more weaves and I've got it. I'm gonna flatten it, slide it down, tighten it up. Check that measurement one more time. I think I've just about got it. Let's see. So yeah, that's looking pretty good right there. You see how there's a little bit of space right on the other side of that stone? That's what we want. Just a little bit of space, not a whole lot. So now we're going to take these wires here and we're going to channel them around the stone. We're going to weave it around the stone. So I'll take my round nose pliers and I'll just leave a little indentation based on what I think the size of the stone I'm using. Try to just guess the size, you know, based off looks. So I'll have something that kind of looks like that. Next I'll take my flats and I'll just come right up to where my weave goes around my base wires, and I'll flatten down the top wires to bring it down right up against the base wires. And I'll do another 3 weave all the way around all of the wires. There. Now we'll lift these 4 gold wires back up and we'll go around and back around the 4 square base wires once again. Well, make sure that you're always checking yourself and squeezing things together, straightening up anything that looks off. Always be cautious and aware of where you're at in your piece. Now I'm going to continue doing another 6 weave here. Five. That was 6. I'm going to flatten it out. So now you've got something that kind of looks like this. Okay, so next you're going to take your stone, which let me see here. This stone measures at. This stone is I'm not even really sure what the size of the stone is. So hold on one second while I get my tool. It looks like this stone is 6 by 6 by 8, a 6 by 8 millimeter stone. And like I said earlier, as long as you use a 5 millimeter round or more, I think you're going to be okay. I guess you can maybe use a 4, but you just better be very careful. So that's a 6 by 8 oval millimeter stone. It has a pretty high dome. It stands pretty tall. So I need to take my pointers and lift up the wire a little, just like so. That's a little weird, but usually you want to make it a little bit more rounded, not so pointed up like that. But I'm going to slide in the opal. Sometimes it takes a little bit of maneuvering to get it to go in. Sometimes it keeps shifting on you. You may need to use your flats to kind of hold it in place gently. Now bring down your side wire and then one of the middle wires, and now you'll want to tighten it up by kind of pressing down on it. And you'll want to take your flats and hit the corners. And now you're going to want to separate these wires back out again. That's kind of why you want to keep them separated. And then once you see which wire goes to what, you're going to want to gently give these a tug. And I mean gently. There's been many times I've pulled too hard and I've had to either try to slide it back into place or I've just had to restart completely. And boom, that's how you channel a stone. I'm just taking some of my rounds and I'm just going to gently press down right here. I don't want to crack or break my stone, so I'm very gingerly just kind of just shaping it around the stone, and I'll pull it tighter if need be to get it better around. So now you've got a stone set. Congratulations. And if you get it set, you want to just start continuing on. First, of course, press it flat. Get it all straightened up if you need to. If your top wires are kind of out of place, you definitely want to start straightening those up and maybe even hold them in place again. And that's kind of what I'm having to do right here. So I'm going to hold them in place, and I'm going to do another 3 weave right around all of the wires. And get the flats, flatten it down. Check to see if it's straight and tight. Looking pretty good. And once again, flip those back up. And we're going to go right back around our 4 base wires. And we're going to do another 6 weave. And really, you know, I'm doing 6, but you can do whatever you want. Of course, you don't want to do a whole lot because you don't have a whole lot of material to work with. But, you know, my weave counts don't have to be your weave counts. As you can see, I'm kind of following how the flat part of the wire sometimes turns, so you've got to kind of turn it with your piece. Flattening it out, straightening it back up. You do that every so often. You don't want to just continue on making a big long, you know, weave and then realize way down at the very beginning that it should have been a little bit tighter. Alright, lay those down. And I think I'm only going to go around this 2 times here instead of 3. Actually, we'll just leave this like so right now. If you are still with me and this is your channel and this is your first channel set, then I want to congratulate you. I'm happy that I've been able to show you how to channel your first stone. If you already knew how to do this part, then hopefully I didn't bore you too much, or hopefully you've just skipped ahead. I'm going to take a small break and I'll pick back up here in just a moment. Alright, so picking back up where we left off, we now have our basic channel set complete. And what we're going to want to start doing now is we're going to want to start creating our bell. So we're going to want to take down these side wires and spread them down to the sides like so. Straighten them out. Inspect it. Next we're going to take these top wires and we're going to weave them around the side wires. Actually, I'm going to weave around the entire thing 2 more times so we can hold the top wires a little better, finish out your channel. We'll be doing the same thing to the other side. I meant to do that a little while ago and just never did. So I'll go around this 2 times. You can go around it 3 times or 2, whatever you prefer. And next I'll spread those top wires apart up around the side wires like so. But I apologize, before we do that we need to finish off our base weave to create our bell. So we're going to take our weave wire and we're just going to keep going right up the 2 remaining square base wires, just like so. Make sure everything's placed nice and tight, pressed firmly together. Sometimes it's just all about how you lay the wire in there. Just give it a little tension, a little tug. And I'm going to use my flats to press it down. Tighten up, straighten up anything. Keep on going. It looks like I'm just going to finish out what wire I have left. It seems like the length is going to be just the right amount. You'll probably have a little bit of excess base wire that we will end up clipping in the end. But it's better to always have a little bit of extra wire than to have not enough. Once again, I'm just trying to squeeze it tight, press it firmly, straighten it up, inspect it, finish it off. Once again, I'm just kind of looking it over, taking it in, checking the angles out. Always want to be observant of what you're doing at all times. Almost got it. Just a few more times around. Give it another little squeeze. And you know, a lot of people when they make this, you could probably just, you know, start at the bell and work your way down. This is just the way that I like to work it. Yeah, so now you'll have something like this. And I've got a simple dowel rod that I'm just going to stick behind here. You just want something round, nothing with, you know, like a pencil dowel rod. And just kind of up and bend it over around. Just like that. I'm going to take a look at it. Mine looks a little bit crooked, so I'm going to try to straighten it out some. Yeah, you see that? It kind of tilts to the left. So every little thing matters when it comes to this, because you want it to hang correctly. The balance of it can be a little off. And it's just kind of what it's all about. You know, being observant, watching your flow, your balance, and in the end you get a pretty nice piece of jewelry that are holding some crystals to help you along your journey in life. I think that looks a lot better. It's a little touch up right there. And next we're going to want to take these excess base wires, these two little base wires from your bell, and I'm going to want to trim them, snip them off, and just enough to where we have enough to bend inwards towards our channel weave. So about 1 centimeter. I still need to take off a little bit more. And I'm going to take my flats and I'm going to bend it inward. I'm going to try to hold the bell in place, make sure it doesn't twist any on me. Just like that. Inspect anything, check it from different angles. Now I'm going to use my rounds to just try to, just because my bell is a little off, so I'm just trying to fix it a little bit, you know. It happens. Nobody is perfect. All you can do is your best, and all you can do is say that you've tried. Practice makes perfect. So now we'll take these top wires, finally, and wrap them around our sides. And we're going to finish this off. You just want to get it nice and tight. So this wire here is like kind of wanting to sort of curl up onto the other wire, so I'm just trying to adjust it accordingly. Always want to try to be aware, especially when you're working with half round wire. This stuff tends to really twist on you easily. Sometimes just the easiest things can really give you a moment that might kind of test your patience, you know? Like, man, why can't I just hurry up and get this? So now we're just going to snip it up close and tight. Try to snip it out of the way. And pretty much similar to the way you snipped it the other side. Next we'll take our pliers and just kind of press it right up against your base, and by pressing in the ends just kind of twist it around your base wire, fill around it. You want to make sure nothing is really sticking out, nothing's really going to poke you. I just kind of want to take my flats and kind of straighten it out some. It's one thing I really like about the flat-headed pliers is that you can just really bend it at just the right angle to really fix a wire if you need to get it straight, and that looks pretty good in my opinion. So you should have something that looks like this. So now let's go to the other side and wrap the leftover weave around 2 times or 3 times, and then any remaining weave I will wrap it around the base wire to just kind of finish it off. Flip that up. I'm going to use my pliers here to get a better grip on the little bit of wire I have remaining, just to kind of try to twist it around my base wire. Okay. So now we're going to do the exact same thing as we did to the top, to the bottom. Spread out your side wires. Alright. And now we're going to take those top wires and we're going to wrap them around the side wires, just like the top. I'm using my pliers here to just kind of get a better grip again and twist it tighter. And now I'm just going to clip off the excess right up against it, nice and close. You want to tuck the ends tightly around the base. Give it a little twist. Make sure nothing's poking out. You don't want to get got, and you don't want to get anybody. Kind of straighten everything up a little bit, take a peek at it. And alright, if you are right here, then I must say congratulations. We are almost there. I mean, technically you already have a piece that you could take and bend into a piece of its own. You could twist off the back, and you can make it look just like the other side. Cut off those side wires so those don't even exist, have yourself a little charm, a little keychain, or you could have just continued on and made yourself a little ring, just like that, a little adjustable ring. It just really is about how you want to take your steps. I hope you see the directions that you can take just from doing this right here. You know, what I'm doing is just one way that I do it. There's endless possibilities. So next I'm going to spread these apart. I'll use my flats to try to get a better angle. And now we want to try to check our measurements here. And we're going to be making some markings for where we will want to make our bends. It's very important to know where to make your bend and how the bend occurs when using your pliers against the wire. You know, just the slightest little amount being off can really throw off a piece. I find that symmetry is definitely, in my opinion, one of the harder things to achieve with pieces. Like I said, just one small measurement from the beginning can just kind of make things look funky. Like you can't really figure it out, but it's just something that is a little off. But all you can do is just the best you can. Practice, practice, and practice. Day in and day out, or whenever you just have time. I'm going to bend them right at the markings. Just like so. Take a look at your piece, kind of inspect some, make sure that your bends look pretty good. And my markings were a little off. Even after trying to mark it, I still had a bend that was a little off. But now that looks pretty good in my opinion. So you should have something that looks like this. And now we're going to be taking these top wires here. And we're going to want to bend these down at an angle. I recommend using the flat headed pliers. Just give it a nice good you don't want, sometimes it's good to just kind of bend it, not crease it real hard, and then if you think your bend is correct, go ahead and do the full crease. So we're just going to bend these down. Just like so. Alright, sorry about that. I didn't realize my camera had stopped recording, and I continued on a little bit without any footage. But it's okay. I didn't go too far ahead, and I'll try to explain what I did to the best of my ability. So what I did was I left off with these two wires right here, and I was bringing them down. So what I did was I bent about an inch down on each side, marking it, and then bending the wires towards the weave. And when I bent the wires, there was excess wire that was laying across the back here, so I ended up just bending it right up against the channel weave, down along the side of it, and then I ended up clipping off any of the excess base wire right up against to where it belongs. So I'll zoom in just a little bit so you can get kind of like a better look at what I did here. I just brought those wires down, creased them inwards, and then creased them downwards. That's the back side. And now we're just going to take both of these side wires here that are sticking out, and we're just going to start bringing them up against the other base wire. And we'll bring it in and behind it for right now. All the way up. There we go. Just something sort of like that. And next I'm going to make a bend, and I'm just going to follow along that other base wire, trying to keep your spacing correct at the same time. I'm going to use my flats to try to make a good little crease here. If you feel like you need to mark your wire, I would suggest marking it. I'm just kind of eyeing it right here. And you should have something that looks kind of like this. And so I'm going to do the other thing, the exact same thing to the other side here. And I shouldn't have done that. I'm going to have to backtrack a little bit. Just need to readjust some. There we go. Okay. So we've got this now happening, and you kind of see what the pendant will be looking like. So now we're just going to take our weave and we're going to do an X weave up the sides. And we'll trim up the ends and kind of just loop it. Now you could of course just do whatever you want. You can go up the sides, do a little bit different if you had excess wire. It just, like I said, I hope you're just seeing different angles that you could do and create while making a pendant here with this weave. So we're just gonna start shaping this down with like a little curve. Just like so. And we're going to try to do the exact same thing on the other side. Try your best to match it. You know, look at your piece from different angles to see if everything looks symmetrical. And that's looking pretty good. So now we'll just weave up both sides and we'll be done. A little bit more adjustment here. There we go. So yeah, we'll just weave up that outer wire here and go right up the side, both sides. This is where I'll be using the my weave wire will be the 30 gauge gold fill round wire. If you're using gold, that's great. You can probably be using silver or whatever craft wire. This is gold fill, which is just like a really thick 14 karat gold plate around a brass wire base. A little less expensive than solid gold, but it's still pretty pricey. I'm going to cut off about 1.5 feet of wire. So now we'll start with the outer base wire by just wrapping your 30 gauge weave wire around it, and until you get up far enough to where you can go over and then under your other base wire to create that figure 8 or X pattern weave. And I'll just go around this. I'm not really counting here. I'm just kind of just going up until I get to enough to where I'll have enough space to get to that other wire. Check your weaves. Make sure that none of the wires are overlapping each other. Everything looks squeezed up and tight. That looks like enough space. And I'll be doing a 3 weave wire across to the other wire. And this is the figure 8 weave. You want to hold your other wire that's your other base wire that's a little loose. You want to make sure that it doesn't move on you. You want to try to keep your spacing all pretty much the same. Now I'm just going back around my base wire here. On the other side, I'm doing a 6-3 weave, just like I've been doing most of the tutorial. And it looks like I've got a little loose wire at the very beginning. So I'm actually going to backtrack some and tighten that up. So once I get this fixed, I'm just going to continue on with my weave. I'm going to be using that 6 and 3 count weave. Of course, do whatever count that you're doing. If you're following along count for me, then continue on with 6. Just continue taking your time, making sure to stop and push things tightly together if need be. Making sure that none of your wires have overlapped. And just give it the slightest tension into its place. Sometimes that could be some of the most challenging things, is trying to weave in and around different wires when you've already got, weaves in place. Especially when you want it to make the piece to look good, you kind of want to hide the weave. You don't want it to show that you're connecting over and under different wires. and it can be very time consuming. I'll probably be doing this all the way up until I begin to run out of room. I'll probably have another 5 minutes or so of doing this weave. So you can skip ahead or you can just continue watching me here do this. Checking everything, making it tight. And here we want to start making sure that we start keeping our spacing correct. You don't want to over pull on your wire and squeeze them together. You want to try to keep them, I mean, you'll probably of course squeeze it a little bit together, but it's just good to know your tension and how hard you should be pulling on wires. Over and under and over. Or I guess I should say over and under, over and under, over and under. You're just weaving back and forth to each wire like an X or a figure 8. Under and over. 1, 2, 3, and back to the other wire, over and under 6 times. Back to the other wire, over and under. We're going to go around it 3 times. And this might be the last one. I might be able to fit one more on there, we'll see. Yeah, let's get that over one more time. We're almost done here on this side. Just gonna finish this off with a few more weaves. I'll wiggle this free. Sometimes I just wiggle my wires until they break, because I think that I can get, you know, a much cleaner break, like really kind of right into where that pinch point is that you normally probably couldn't get with just a normal pair of clippers. So let me try to adjust my camera here. So you should have a piece that looks kind of like this. And that is your figure 8 weave. Sorry, I spun the adjustment on my camera in the wrong direction. Okay. So now we're going to cut these excess base wires off. And you know, if you ever wanted to get more elaborate, you could always just, if you had excess wire, you can go right up the sides. You could do something totally different and make a whole different looking pendant. It just really depends on your creative flow and what you're feeling. If I was using 20 gauge, I would maybe loop the end here and create and stick in a stone, but 18 gauge makes that a little bit more difficult to do. So I'm just going to trim this off a little more, and I'll create a loop at the end. Well, I'll leave at least about a centimeter, or maybe a little less, where you trim. Just enough to create a little loop. And sometimes when you create a loop, you've got to trim into that loop to twist it a little bit more to really get a nice circle. So now I'm going to twist it. Just kind of like that, and I'll probably trim some more of that loop to get a better, tighter looking loop. There we go. So you're gonna want to have something that looks like this. And now we're going to do the exact same thing to the other side. Okay, so I went ahead and did the other side here. And now it's done. And you can pretty much see how the pendant is going to look. The only thing we got to do now is just hammer out the ends. I suppose if you don't have any hammering tools, you could always just weave and loop it out similar to how you just did your last weave. But so now I'll just take my hammer and slowly hammer out the tips with this hammering block. And you want to make sure you have a metal hammer, jeweler's hammer preferred, small. I don't have one currently available, so I'm using a larger hammer, which for this right here it's okay, but sometimes you really got to get into like in between wires, and a small metal hammer is necessary. So I'll just take the hammer and slowly hammer out the tips. Just nice and easy. I'm gonna make sure your wires are spread apart and not really overlapping, because if they overlap, you will end up weakening the wires. You'll end up leaving really bad indentation marks, and it won't be good. So hammer from the back side if you want to get a nice flat look on the front. It's starting to get there. You just want to keep working it out, because we want to try to make it to where it's like a round tip and kind of skinny more towards the top. Starting to get a nice little hammered look here. A couple good solid whacks at it. There we go. Oh, a little more. I'm kind of hammering it and pushing my wire or my hammer outwards with the hit to try to maybe just have a force split it open and down. So it may be a little sharp at the ends. So you'll need to use some sandpaper here. I'm just kind of inspecting it over real quick. Okay, so now we're gonna get, I've got a 250 grit sandpaper here, and I just want to try to get the edges, the burrs kind of off, and then I'll use a 1000 grit for the rest. But right now I'm just trying to roughly just get those edges that can really nick you or stick you. You don't want anything that's going to snag you. I'm just trying to shape it into a nice little round curve. You want to try to give it that nice little kind of drip look. I'm going to just be tensioning those wires together. Just kind of give it like a reverse tension to bring those together. And sort of like making a clip out of it. And keep on manipulating it. I squeeze it together a little. Sort of like that. Now I'm going to use the 1000 grit. And just going to go to town on it. Just keep at it. Trying to smooth it up, kind of brighten it up. So for the next 5 minutes or so, I'll just be sanding away. And getting in between those. I did end up making these ends a little longer than I wanted. So I'll be reclipping these ends, and I'll be rehammering it out to make them a little shorter, and then I'll repeat the sanding process. So, you know, you can either sit here and listen to some music and watch me do this while you do it, or you can just go ahead and skip ahead a few minutes to about the 1 hour and 28 minute mark, and that's where I'll be picking back off. You know, sometimes you'll put in so much work. I will often find myself, I put in a lot of work doing one thing, only to realize that, you know, maybe I should do it a little different, or maybe I did it a little too much and I need to backtrack, or like in this instance, I should have cut those ends a little shorter. Because the bottom just kind of, right now, it just kind of overtakes the entire pendant with the flow of the whole thing. And I have yet to realize that. As I'm still continuing on, pushing them together, I'm about to realize that I need to clip this. But also, you know, if you wanted to make a really cool like pin, like a clip for a hat, you could just take those wires and bend them up around the back of the pendant, and you can use that as a clip to put on like a bill of a hat. So now I'm restarting all of this process again, and I'm going to try to make it a little bit shorter. Okay, I got the hammer look. Now I'm gonna hurry up and try to sand it down. I'm just using the 1000 still here. it seemed to work pretty good, and a lot of the edges and sharp marks that I had from the first initial hammer I don't really have on this part. So I'm just hitting it with the 1000. And this is a wet or dry sandpaper. I have 2000 and 3000. They're good to have, especially when you want to work wet and you want to try to polish out some stones or wire. You can get a nice, pretty good, nice shine. Alright, I got about another minute or so of me shaping and sanding this down. Almost there. Starting to looking pretty good. Alright, now I'm just trying to give it some reverse tension, straighten it all up. Okay, and almost. And here we are. I hope your pieces came out looking very similar, or that you were able to build on this and create something of your very own. This piece has a date with a dip soon. By that I mean I'll be oxidizing it to help bring out the definition and detail of the wire, which will give it a whole new element. And I'll show you that process in just a moment. But until then, if you don't want to dip it, congratulations, you are now done and you have completed your pendant. Okay, so now I've given it a little bath in this solution here. It's a patina solution of liver of sulfur, and I just got it from the hobby store down the street here. Michael's, any big box hobby store should have this. So this will oxidize the piece or antiques it. You just mix it with some hot water. This only takes a minute or so, just depending on how much solution you use. So while it does this, I'm going to set up my polisher and I'll show you my next step. Also, this stuff does smell like just smells bad. It smells like egg sulfur. Alright, and this is the final result after the patina bath. It's liver of sulfur is what we dipped it in. It's hard to tell, but this is actually a black grayish color. It looks kind of, I guess that's kind of what it looks like in the video. This light here makes it kind of weird to see things, but now we're going to polish it up, make it look really good. So here in the background I have my polisher, and we're going to give a nice quick little polish. Okay, now I'm going to want to take a higher polish pad to make it shiny a little bit more. So I'm going to just take out this head here, swap it out with a high polish head to really give it just a better shine in general, make the metal look more like, just give it a better shine. we are done with that, and we're just going to give it a nice little rinse with some, some mild detergent or some shampoo. Seems to work pretty well too. And then that's it. We'll be done. It'll be good to go. Yeah, I'll show you the finished product in just here in a moment. Alright, so here we have the final end result of all the hard work that you have put into today. I hope you are satisfied with your piece, and I hope you enjoyed making it. And I also hope that I was easy enough to follow along, and that I perhaps maybe opened up a few doors for you, and that you'll be able to apply what I've shown you to more of your future work. I look forward to doing another tutorial in the future, so please support what I'm doing here by subscribing, liking, sharing, and I'll continue to make tutorials that will hopefully be easy enough to follow with high-end results. If you have any suggestions or perhaps future tutorials or ideas, please feel free to get in contact or leave a comment below. Also, if you'd like to see or purchase my work, you can visit my Etsy shop at etsy.com/shop/higher-level-finds, or on Facebook at higher-level-finds, or on Instagram take_it_to_a_higher_level. Take it to a higher level. Thanks for watching, and until next time, happy wrapping.
Now look here.